moving to a subscription model, I actually think is going to save money over the long run. Next week, Logos is switching from the old model where you buy and upgrade if you want to every couple of years to a new model where if you want their latest features, you'll be paying a monthly subscription for it or an annual subscription. In this video, we're going to talk about those subscriptions, what it means for you, how to choose the right subscription, and what you're going to expect in each of those subscriptions. So let's get into it. So Logos is switching from a paid product where every 2 years they release an update and then you get those updates if you pay for it, but you can keep your old version and not pay any difference. This has actually been an interesting model to watch evolve from that into a subscription model. I personally really like the subscription model. I know a lot of people don't, but if you think about it this way, from my point of view, when I was upgrading from Logos Bible software from one version to another, it's pretty hard to spend less than several $100s, if not thousands, really, when you go through that update. And the reason for that is that effectively every time you go purchase an updated package, you'd end up buying a huge library that would upgrade your library at the same time. And the reality is that I don't really need to update my library every time, but the upgrade cycle was a really cost-effective way of doing this. So moving to a subscription model, I actually think is going to save money over the long run. Now, I'm not getting paid to do this video. This is just my personal opinion. Let me explain a little bit about these models, how they work, and what you can expect. Hi, I'm Daryl Burling from Biblical Mastery Academy, here to help you with the tools, habits, and systems to master the Greek of the New Testament. If you are interested in learning Greek and getting into the New Testament in the original language and the Old Testament for that matter, then check out bma.to/get started to find out more about getting started on that journey for yourself. Now, as Logos moves next week into these new subscription models, they are introducing 3 subscription models. And it's really quite simple once you get your head around it. So the 3 tiers that you need to know about are Premium, Pro, and Max. Premium, and they're really quite an interesting named series of subscription levels, aren't they? So Premium is really your low end. That's your low end Logos Bible software subscription. Now, depending on what Bible software, what version of Logos Bible software you have right now, before you upgrade, that's going to make a difference at launch, at least for the first 2 years, of how much you're going to pay for your subscription. After that 2 years, I think you end up reverting to the full price. So we'll talk about that as well. But the other thing is, if you've already got your full Logos Bible software and you go onto the subscription, and after 2 years you choose to exit from the subscription, you get to keep all the features that you had prior. You never get to lose any of those features. So those features that are part of Logos 10 that you already purchased, you will have indefinitely. Logos is never going to take those away from you if you stay a member for the first 2 years of the subscription model. But I think there's good reasons to stay a subscriber for more time than that. But we'll talk about that as we get into it. Let's talk about those 3 subscription tiers. The first one is the Premium tier. Premium is the lowest level membership tier or subscription tier that they have. This is really designed for lay leaders, people leading a Bible study, and as such, it's not going to provide you with a lot of the heavier resources that you might want to use. For instance, there's no language tools in this at all, so you can't work with Greek or Hebrew. You have to work through an English translation. You don't get access to a lot of the sermon management material that is part of the Pro version, which we'll talk about in a minute. So it's a really basic version and it's reasonably priced. So if you don't own Logos Bible software, the most you'll pay for it is $9.99 a month or $99 a year. Or if you do own Logos Bible software, bronze level and up, it's only going to cost you $6.99 a month or $69.99 a year. Now, this is for the first 2 years. So if you've got Logos Bible software already, that discount applies for the first 2 years of your subscription. After that, I believe it will revert back to the full price, but I'm not 100% certain, and I might have that wrong. So check the documentation before you buy. But Logos have really spent a lot of time working on the Pro version of this subscription to make this really the best subscription for most people that's out there. So for the most part, if you're watching a video by me anyway, you're probably not a premium subscriber candidate because you're probably interested in the original languages. And if you are interested in the original languages, then you're not going to want to mess around with premium. You really want the Pro Edition or the Max Edition. I'll talk about in just a moment why you probably just want to stick with the Pro Edition for the moment. The Pro Edition starts at $9.99 if you've got a copy of Logos 10 Silver or above. If you don't own a copy of Logos 10 Silver, it is $14.99 per month or $149 a year. So everything in the Pro Edition is also included in the Max Edition. The Pro Edition is really designed for people who are developing sermons, doing deeper study. Perhaps you've been to seminary and you sort of use the Greek and Hebrew a little bit for doing lookups and things like that. So you'll get those basic Greek morphology tools with the Pro Edition, which is kind of nice. Since you're watching this channel, I assume you're interested in Greek and Hebrew, and so the Pro Edition is going to give you access to those Greek morphology tools that you're probably used to using already in Logos 10. So those come with the Pro Edition of the Logos subscription. If you're looking at Greek and Hebrew, this is where you really want to go. The big benefit, though, of the Pro Edition is really focused around people developing sermons. And so this is where you get your sermon outliner, your sermon manager, things like that. But you've also got these new AI tools. Now, you do get some basic Bible study AI tools with the Premium Edition, but again, it's very limited. Once you get into the Pro Edition, now you're going to have a number of additional AI tools, which I think are actually pretty cool. Now, if you're developing sermons regularly, a couple of these are going to be huge time benefits for you. They're going to give you a bit of time back when you do your sermon development. One of the things that can take quite a lot of time when you're writing sermons is actually finding the right illustrations for your sermons, or perhaps coming up with questions that can be used in a Bible study for people who are following your sermons later on. And so there's now AI tools built into the Pro Edition of the subscription that are going to allow you to quickly generate those and drop out the ones you want and regenerate ones you think could be better, and so on, in a way that's going to be really helpful. So they have a number of sermon assistants, they call them. The first one is the outliner, and this basically you put in a passage, you put in the basic theme or a title for that sermon, and then hit a button and it's going to come back with a bunch of an outline of that sermon, a bunch of headings that you can use to preach that sermon. It even asks you, how many headings do you want? How many points do you want to make? And it'll generate those for you. You can also hit regenerate. So if you don't like the first set, just hit generate again and it will create a new set for you. And it will even save the previous set so you can start to compare them, and then you can pick and choose from several of them and draw them together into your own actual sermon outline if you would like to do that. So that's a pretty cool tool. I personally don't really use that. I've kind of played with it a little bit, but I find that the way I create sermon outlines is a little different. I have a proposition, and then I have often an alliterated or somewhat alliterated series of points, which I want to try and, maybe not alliterated, but I want to try and have some consistency between them. And I found that the AI generated ones don't give me the consistency I'm looking for. And so that requires some wordsmithing, but they are really good for starting off with some good ideas for a sermon outline. And I think if nothing else, if you go to a church where people are used to preaching through a whole chapter in one session, this is probably a really good way to sort of look at things, because hopefully it might help you to take a smaller passage and really get into some nuts and bolts in a bit more depth. So I think this outliner is a really good, helpful step for easily generating sermons. There's also a question generator. Now, this is another one that I think is really cool because it's very easy to sort of spend a lot of time trying to generate study questions afterwards. And here's, again, another tool. Again, it just allows you to click a button and effectively generate a number of questions that you can then turn into study questions, regenerate them, and add them to an outline, which you can then hand out to home group leaders or whoever, or put it in the newsletter even for the sermon, so that people can think about these things a little bit further afterwards. Again, these are great starting points. You'll want to edit them and make them your own, but it certainly will save a lot of time over just trying to generate these ideas for yourself. And then of course there is the application and illustration outliner as well, which again, you can create illustrations, or at least find illustrations from inside your library that fit with what you're trying to do in this particular context. And again, it asks you a series of questions, 2 or 3 I think it is, just to sort of understand what you're trying to actually bring out with this illustration, and then it will generate a bunch of options and you can choose the ones that you want to put into the sermon. So those are some pretty cool tools that are available at launch. The full version of the Pro Edition is $149 a year, or $14.99 a month. Or if you've got Logos Silver and above, it comes to you for $9.99 a month or $99 per year. So that's the one that I think most of us are probably going to want to move to on day one. The reason being is that the Pro version and the Max version are largely the same at launch. Now, this will change over time. I think what they're doing here, and this is just me thinking out loud here, is that they've made sure that they've got a really good Pro version for most of the market at launch, and then they're going to come back, and as they add new features, I believe they will add those to the Max subscription tier instead of to the Pro subscription tier. Now, I'm sure some will come into the Pro subscription tier, but I think their focus will be on that Max tier. And that Max tier is really designed for researchers, people who are doing academic work, people who are in the languages. That's who it's for. But like I said, the feature set for this is no different to the Pro edition at the time of launch. There is one important difference though between these. And let me give you a little background on the AI side of things so you can understand what this one difference is. And it might be a changer for you, but I really don't think it's going to make a big difference. So, and don't forget, of course, that you can always upgrade from Pro to Max later on should you want to do so. So this AI thing. So the way AI works is effectively Logos are using a third-party AI tool, and this means that they end up having to pay a fee, monthly, yearly, whatever it is, I have no idea, to use that tool as well. Now, it doesn't send information back. It generates it all based on your library. It's not getting stuff from all over the internet or anything like that. It's just based on the material in your library and just using the learning engine that an AI system has effectively to create the content that you're after. So it's mostly going to be working in-house, but it does send a request back to your to Logos, who then send it back to their AI provider. Now, every time the AI provider gets a request, it is part of Logos's subscription. So they're paying for your use of this AI effectively. So when you come to an AI-based thing within the Logos subscription that you have, and you click that generate button to generate an AI-based outline or illustration or whatever it is, that costs Logos something. Now, that means then that they are rationing, if you like, those requests into the different tiers of these subscription levels, which means then that if you've got, so the premium level, you're not going to have as many credits, as they call them, to use the AI tools as someone in the Pro level will have, or someone in the Max level will have. Now, honestly, I don't think this is going to be a big deal for two reasons. First of all, Logos are going to include in the bottom left corner of the Logos Bible Software app a little indicator to tell you how many of your credits you've used up, so you'll know how many you've used. But I think that there's going to be so many of these credits available to you. Literally, there are hundreds of them for each of the tiers that you're probably not even going to be using them up unless you're generating a sermon 3 to 4 times a week. And for every one of those, you're generating an outline and illustrations and then the study questions as well. And you're doing multiple calls to that. Unless you're doing that, I really doubt you're going to use that many AI requests. And so I wouldn't think it's probably worth upgrading to Max just to get the extra bundle of credits that you probably won't ever use anyway. So that's my thoughts on those 3 subscriptions, and that's the difference between the Pro and the Max, just the number of credits at the moment. But in the future, I expect that Logos Max will actually have more features added to it as Logos continue to develop their feature set. Let me just make a little note that regardless of which of these 3 tiers you decide to purchase, there are some benefits that come for just being a subscriber to Logos Bible Software. The first one is you get 5% off everything on their website effectively, apart from some obvious things like gift cards, subscriptions, and interestingly, pre-pubs and pre-orders. So you don't get 5% on those, but you'll get 5% on any other book that you purchase online just because you are a Logos Bible Software subscriber. So that's a starting benefit. There is also, for every Bible software user, you get a free book of the month. Now you might say, well, there's already a book of the month. Yes, there is. There's a free book of the month right now, but as a subscriber, you get an extra free book of the month starting from November 2024. So that's an additional benefit. And then each of the 3 software or subscription levels also includes a number of mobile ed courses as part of that subscription tier. So depending on the level of subscription, you'll get some courses that are going to help you to use that level of that subscription. So it could be for the Pro level, which includes sermon outlining materials and sermon development materials. It's probably going to give you a mobile ed course on sermon development from one of the leading experts in that area. So watch for things like that. as you sort of think about which tier you want to purchase. And then if you are a Pro or a Max subscriber, every year as you spend money on Logos books, every February you will get what they call a reward voucher, which is basically 5% of the cash you have spent on books in the previous 12 months, you will get as a rebate voucher that you can then go and spend on more Logos Bible Software books for your Logos library. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. And remember, these 3 different subscription options have nothing to do with the books that you use. They are really just about the tools that Logos Bible Software, the software platform itself, provides you to access that tool, which brings me to a really important point. You might be wondering, well, what if I never upgrade to this subscription? What happens to all my books? And Logos have said that they are going to provide a free version of Logos Bible Software so you can continue to access your books forever. So all those books that you've already purchased, if you never upgrade to the software side of things, to the subscription, you can keep using those books in Logos Bible Software. However, you will miss out on some of the features that are coming to Logos Bible Software. So that's it for how Logos Bible Software subscriptions work. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how the libraries are going to work, because those are also getting some tweaks along the way. So we'll talk about that in the next video. In the meantime, if you are interested in trying out a Logos subscription, let me encourage you to use this link just down here, because what this gives you is a 60-day, not a 30-day, but a 60-day free trial of the Logos, whatever Logos version you want to try out, and I'd suggest again the Pro. At the end of those 60 days, you can either choose to keep your subscription or you can end it, no cost at all. So check it out down below. Get your free 60-day trial. Stay tuned for that next video. If you have got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Leave me a halo emoji. That's a little smiley face with a halo above it to let me know you got this far in the video, and I will click the love button on that comment of yours. But thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, which will be talking about the Logos libraries. We'll see you there.